The origin of all wealth lies not in the bank, the economy, or the movement of currency. It begins in a realm far more potent than any financial system. It begins in the imagination. The mind, when rightly used, is the divine creative faculty that shapes the conditions of life. To seek riches outwardly, without first planting the seed inwardly, is to reverse the divine order. You are not here to chase what is already formed. You are here to create by assuming the end and letting it externalize in its appointed time. Everything seen was once unseen. Every fortune ever amassed first existed as an idea, a feeling, a conviction within someone. The gold did not make the man rich, the man made the gold appear, because he first believed in the richness of his being. This is law. To attempt to gather wealth while feeling unworthy, insecure, or doubtful is to sow in barren soil. No matter how hard the labor, the harvest cannot come forth unless the seed is alive, and the seed is your inner state. You are the cause. The conditions are merely the effects. You have been taught to believe in the outer as the source, and the inner as imagination only. But the truth is reversed. It is your inner world, your unseen beliefs and persistent assumptions that give rise to the experiences you call real. The outer is only the mirror. It must reflect what you hold as true in consciousness. If you wish to become wealthy, you must first become wealthy in thought. Not thought alone as in idle daydreams, but thought imbued with feeling. For it is feeling that gives thought its creative power. You must feel what it would be like to possess, to command, to move as one who already owns. You must walk in the assumption that it is so, and the world will conform. There is no power in external struggle that compares with the silent force of inner conviction. Those who understand this law move differently. They are not swayed by appearances, nor discouraged by temporary lack. They know that the lack is an illusion, a reflection of old states, already fading. Their attention is fixed not on what is, but on what they have accepted within. And what they accept, they will see this is certain. You are always planting. Every thought is a seed, every feeling a root. If you continuously entertain thoughts of not enough, of waiting for money to come, of needing a miracle from outside, you are planting poverty, regardless of what you desire. But when you accept now that wealth is your natural state, when you assume the feeling of already being provided for, and persist in it not just once, but daily, faithfully you have sown the seed, and that seed, in time, will bear fruit. The inner world is the only true source. From it all manifestations spring. Wealth begins when you realize this truth and dare to live from it. To assume a thing is to make it real within consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality. You do not wait for evidence before believing. You believe, and then evidence appears. This is the eternal principle. Assumption is not mere wishing or idle daydreaming. It is an act of creation. It is the deliberate acceptance that what is imagined is already true. And once that assumption is made and persisted in, all the powers of life begin to move toward its fulfillment. Assumption is the seed. Just as every tree was once a seed that carried within it the full pattern of the forest, so too does every wealthy life begin with an internal claim, I am wealthy. That claim may feel unnatural at first. The senses may deny it. The world may contradict it. But if you persist, if you refuse to yield to appearances, the unseen becomes seen, and the inner reality externalizes. You are not trying to become something. You are accepting that you already are. This is the secret. There is no becoming, only being. To assume the state of wealth is to clothe yourself in the feeling of abundance long before the world reflects it. You rise each day and you carry within you the knowing that you are rich, even when the bank account says otherwise. Why? Because you have planted the seed, and the harvest must come. You do not dig up the seed to see if it is growing. You remain faithful to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Persistence is key. A single moment of assumption can open the door, but it is the continual return to that inner state that impresses it deeply upon the subconscious mind where all creation begins. You do not wait passively. You live from the end. You carry yourself, speak, and think from the place of already having. You move as the person you desire to be, and in doing so you cause the outer world to reconfigure itself to match that internal truth. There is a sacred difference between wanting and assuming. Wanting keeps you in separation, always reaching but never touching. Assuming is possession. It is knowing. It is declaring within yourself, it is done. And that declaration, when lived and felt sincerely, gathers all things unto itself. The world responds to your inner convictions. If you assume poverty, it will appear. If you assume wealth, wealth must come. But you cannot trick life. It responds only to what you truly feel to be so. So let your assumption be honest. Dwell not in fantasy, but in faith. Accept the state of the millionaire, not with force or desperation, but with quiet confidence. As naturally as you wear your own name, wear the feeling of financial abundance. Persist. Return to it in thought. Reaffirm it in feeling. And the seed you plant through assumption shall blossom in the fullness of time, for it cannot do otherwise. You attract not what you desire, but what you are conscious of being. This is the divine principle upon which all manifestation rests. The world around you is not acting independently of you. It is a mirror, faithfully reflecting your inner state. To be conscious of wealth is to carry within you a feeling, a knowing that wealth is your present reality. And when that state is assumed, impressed, and sustained, life must mold itself around it. Everything begins in consciousness. If you are conscious of being poor, even with temporary riches in hand, you will find ways to return to that state, for the law will not be mocked. The outer world can only reveal what has first been accepted inwardly. What you see, what you touch, what you experience, these are all outpicturings of the invisible ideas you hold about yourself. You may say you wish to be rich. You may speak the words, chant the affirmations, read all the books, but if the underlying feeling is lack, then lack will be what you receive. You must change the root, not the fruit. Do not seek to rearrange outer circumstances. Instead, become aware of the source from which they flow. That source is your consciousness. It is not biased. It is not judging, it simply reflects. To live in the consciousness of wealth is not to boast, nor is it to pretend. It is to move inwardly with the calm knowing that supply is already yours. You walk as one who has enough. You think as one who possesses. You feel no lack, no fear, no urgency. From this silent and unseen state, the world reshapes itself. Opportunities arise, people respond differently, paths open. But they are only shadows. The real substance is your consciousness. You need not know how it will come. The how is never your concern. Your work is to maintain the state. Let the bridges build themselves. When the consciousness is secured, everything else must obey it. Do not chase conditions. Instead, rise into the state where the condition is already fulfilled. Assume it and live from it. Let your thoughts, your feelings, your actions flow from this inner reality. This is not theory. This is law. To test it is to prove it. Take for yourself the feeling of already being financially secure. Not someday, but now. Not hypothetically, but actually. Wear that feeling throughout the day. Let it color your inner conversations. Let it govern your reactions. Let it become more real to you than what your senses report. And when it becomes natural, when you no longer strain to feel it, but rest in it, the outer must shift. You do not force the world to bring you wealth. You bring wealth to the world by first embodying it. And the world, being your reflection, cannot help but echo what you have declared within. Consciousness is cause. Life is effect. And when you change the cause, the effect must follow. When a seed is sown into the earth, The wise gardener does not return each morning to dig it up and check if it is growing. He knows that to do so would disrupt the process and destroy the very life he intends to bring forth. Instead, he trusts in the law of growth. He waters the soil, he gives it sunlight, and most of all, he waits in quiet confidence, knowing that what was planted in faith must rise in due season. The same law governs the unseen world of assumption. When you assume a state, whether it be wealth, health, love, or freedom, you are planting a seed in the fertile soil of consciousness. But unlike the gardener, who understands the invisible process of nature, many plant their desires in mind and then anxiously dig them up through doubt, impatience, and worry. They check the outer world for signs. They ask, "Why hasn't it come yet?" Or, "Is this really working?" And in doing so, they uproot the seed before it has taken root. Faith is the nourishment of that inner seed. It is the deep knowing that what you have accepted within must become without. Once you have assumed the state of being wealthy, you must resist the temptation to question whether it is working. The assumption, once made in feeling, begins an invisible process. Circumstances may not immediately reflect the change, but that means nothing. The seed does not show signs of life on the surface until its roots are established below. So too, with your desires be the time the world begins to reflect your inner wealth, the reality of it has already been planted long before. Do not be swayed by appearances. Do not contradict your inner work by entertaining thoughts of doubt, by giving attention to lack, or by falling back into the old story. The former state may try to return, not because it has power, but because it has momentum. But you must remain loyal to your vision. Persistence in the assumption is your sacred task. Do not seek confirmation in the outer world. You are not hoping for a sign. You are giving life to a new reality through your inner conviction. Let the feeling of the wish fulfilled be your dwelling place. Let it be the atmosphere you breathe, the mood you carry, the vibration you hold. Every time you return to it, you reinforce the root. Every time you doubt it, you weaken its hold. To assume and then look outward for proof is to place the effect above the cause. But to assume and rest in that inner knowing is to walk in harmony with spiritual law. The seed is always faithful. What you plant will grow if you let it. So nourish your assumption with belief, with gratitude, with inner stillness. Do not interfere. Do not beg. Do not question the process. Accept it as done, and in perfect time the harvest will come. The world around you is not separate from you. It is a mirror, reflecting back to you the beliefs, assumptions, and inner convictions you hold about yourself and your circumstances. The universe does not question what you accept as true. It simply conforms to your inner state and presents you with evidence of what you believe to be real. The outer world is not a random collection of events. It is a reflection of your consciousness, an echo of the thoughts and feelings that you carry within. If you assume poverty, if you believe that scarcity is your reality, then poverty will appear in your world. It will manifest in many ways, through lack of opportunity, through struggles, through mischances. But the poverty is not the cause. It is only the effect of your inner conviction. The world is giving you nothing that you have not already accepted within. If you identify with lack, if you live in the consciousness of insufficiency, then that is the life you will experience. Your inner belief about yourself and your situation creates a magnetic force that attracts those circumstances. But the reverse is just as true. If you assume wealth, if you accept abundance as your natural state, wealth must appear. It will come not from effort, but from alignment. When you align yourself with the consciousness of wealth, the world must shift to reflect that assumption. Opportunities will present themselves, and situations that once seemed impossible will open up, not because you have forced them, but because you have assumed the state of already having. The universe operates on the law of correspondence. What you believe within, the world mirrors without. If you carry within you the firm conviction of your own prosperity, Your thoughts, words, and actions will all be in harmony with that assumption. You will think as a wealthy person thinks, act as a wealthy person acts, and speak as a wealthy person speaks. The world, being a mirror of your internal state, will then rearrange itself to match your new consciousness. You may ask, how can I assume wealth when my current circumstances reflect nothing of the sort? This is where true faith and persistence come into play. Your present reality is simply the result of past assumptions. But now, in this very moment, you have the power to change your assumption. The outer world may seem slow to respond, but it must follow. The process may not be immediate, but the law is certain. What you have assumed in consciousness must appear in the external world. Do not wait for the outer world to change before you change your inner state. The change must begin within you. Assume the state of wealth before there is any evidence of it. Feel what it would be like to already be wealthy, to already have everything you desire. Dwell in that feeling, and it will grow. When you persist in this assumption, you are aligning yourself with the natural flow of abundance. And soon, as the world reflects your inner truth, you will see the fruits of your labor manifested in ways that align perfectly with the wealth you have assumed. The world does not give you what you want, it gives you what you are. So if you wish for wealth, be wealthy first in your mind, in your heart, and in your soul. Live from that place of abundance, and the universe will respond in kind. The outer world that you perceive with your senses is not the true reality. It is simply a reflection of what you have accepted as true within. It is a mirror, an effect that follows the inner cause of your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions. Your external wealth, or lack thereof, is not an isolated event, nor is it the result of random occurrences in your life. It is the direct consequence of your inner state. What you truly accept as possible for you on the inside must eventually manifest on the outside, for this is the law of life. Wealth, like all experiences, is born in the invisible realm of the imagination. It is in the mind, in the unseen world of thought and feeling, that the seeds of your reality are planted. When you assume the state of being wealthy, when you live from the feeling of already having, that assumption is the seed. And just as a seed must eventually break through the soil to bear fruit, so too must your assumption eventually solidify into the physical manifestation of wealth. But here is the key. Your external world is always a mirror. The reflection you see is not something that happens to you. It is something that you create. Your wealth, or your lack of it, is not the result of external factors such as market conditions, government actions, or your job. It is the result of your inner acceptance. When you accept that wealth is your natural state, that the feeling of abundance is yours to claim, the outer world must conform to that assumption. The universe has no choice but to reflect back to you the consciousness you have established. This process does not require force. You do not need to struggle or strive for wealth. The effort is in the assumption. When you assume wealth in consciousness, the universe begins to arrange itself to bring that assumption into physical reality. This is not magic, it is law. And the law is impersonal. It operates on the principle of correspondence. What is true for you within must, in time, be reflected in the outer world. External wealth follows the imaginal act. When you create a vivid mental picture of yourself as wealthy, and more importantly, when you live in the feeling of being wealthy, feeling the satisfaction, the security, the ease, the abundance, you are impressing that state upon your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the creative force that brings your desires into manifestation. It does not question, it does not doubt it, simply accepts and produces. It accepts the assumptions you feed it, and it produces them in form. If you persist in the imaginal act of wealth, if you continue to live from the end, then your outer conditions must reflect that. The physical world cannot remain indifferent to the consciousness you embody. Every event, every encounter, Every opportunity will begin to align with your inner state of abundance. What you have assumed in imagination will eventually harden into fact. This is why your external wealth is always a reflection of your inner acceptance. The outer is only a mirror of what you hold within. Therefore, to change your outer world, you must first change your inner world. Live as though you already have what you desire. Feel what it is like to possess the wealth, the freedom, the success you seek. When you live from this state, the world must reflect it. And in time, the wealth that you have accepted within will appear in the form that matches your assumption. Faith is not a vague feeling or a blind hope. It is the deep and unshakable conviction that what you have assumed in consciousness is already real. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the inner knowing that the imaginal act you have chosen to believe in is already a reality long before the physical world has caught up with it. Faith is not a feeling of uncertainty, but a solid, grounded assurance that what you desire has already come to pass in the invisible world and will eventually be made visible. When you assume a state, whether it be wealth, health, love, or success, it is your faith that sustains and nurtures that assumption. Without faith, your assumption is like a seed planted in dry soil. It has no power to grow. But when you possess faith, that assumption is alive. It is growing, and it is making its way into physical form. Faith acts as the bridge between the unseen and the seen, between the imagined and the real. It is the key that unlocks the door to the realm of possibilities and allows what you have assumed to flow into the physical world. Many people fail to understand the importance of faith. They assume that if they see no immediate results, the assumption must not be working. But faith teaches that what is unseen is just as real as what is seen. The physical world, with all its forms, is transient. It is constantly changing, shifting, and responding to the internal creative forces at work within you. When you have faith in your assumption, you are holding fast to the reality of your inner state, regardless of what the outer world may appear to be at the moment. You are no longer waiting for the world to change. You are living from the place of already having what you desire. Faith requires persistence. It is easy to believe for a moment, to feel the thrill of the wish fulfilled, but true faith is sustained, even in the face of contradictory appearances. The world may show no sign of your success, but your faith must remain unwavering. You do not need to see the evidence to know that it is already done in the unseen realm. The belief itself brings the reality into form, for the universe must yield to the conviction you carry within. This is the unalterable law that governs all creation. What you believe to be true about yourself and your world will be made manifest. Faith does not require effort in the traditional sense. It requires trust. It requires living as though you have already received. The key to this faith is knowing that everything is already within you, that the desire you hold is already fulfilled in the spiritual realm, and that it is only a matter of time before the outer world reflects it. To truly believe in the reality of your assumptions is to hold them with such conviction that the outer world can do nothing but mirror them. Your faith in the unseen reality acts as the command that the universe responds to. Once you plant your desire in faith, you can rest in the assurance that it must come to pass. You no longer chase what you want. You live in the knowing that what you have assumed is already yours, and the world must yield to that truth. Faith is the key that unlocks this door. It is the bridge between what is and what will be. It is the power that turns your thoughts into things. The power of assumption becomes truly transformative when you live from the end, not as a future goal, but as a present reality. The secret to manifesting anything you desire lies not in hoping or striving, but in fully embracing the state of having already received. To live in the end is to assume that the thing you desire is already fulfilled in your experience, and from that assumption, all things must follow. This is not a superficial act of pretending. It is the profound understanding that what is assumed in consciousness, regardless of external evidence, is already done. When you live in the end, you do not look to the world to confirm your belief. Instead, you move through life as though the desire has already manifested. You walk, talk, think, and feel as the person who has already attained the goal. You align yourself with the state of the wish fulfilled, and you allow that state to color every thought, every action, every moment. The key is to inhabit the state of the end result, and by doing so, you activate the creative forces that bring it into form. Living in the end is not a passive act. It requires conviction and persistence. The mind may attempt to argue against your assumption. It may present facts, doubts, or contradictions. But when you truly live in the end, you do not give weight to these appearances. You ignore the present conditions and remain steadfast in the feeling of already having. You live from the place of completion. This requires a deep inner certainty, a knowing that the external world will catch up with the inner assumption. For the law is always at work behind the scenes, aligning circumstances and events to fulfill your vision. Living in the end is the most powerful way to impress the subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind, which is the creative mechanism that manifests your desires, responds only to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you assume the end result is already realized, your subconscious mind accepts it as truth and begins to shape your external reality accordingly. You do not need to know the how or the when. Your job is to maintain the feeling of already being in possession of what you desire. It is essential to live from the end with unwavering faith. The external world will often appear to contradict your assumption. Conditions may seem slow to change. But the more you persist in feeling that the end result is already accomplished, the more the world must rearrange itself to reflect your inner state. The outer world has no choice but to mirror your inner assumptions. As you continue to live from the end, the world begins to conform to the vision you have assumed. To live in the end is to live from the fullness of the desired outcome. You do not wait for the circumstances to change, but rather you begin to embody the person who would naturally experience the life you seek. When you live from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you align yourself with the forces of creation, and what is assumed within the mind and felt in the heart must, in time, be made visible in the world. Your assumption, lived out as if it were already real, will eventually crystallize into the tangible reality you seek. The path to manifesting your desires lies not in the world of external effort, but in the power of your consciousness and assumptions. The outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner state, and every experience you have, whether of abundance or lack, is a direct result of the beliefs, feelings, and assumptions you hold. By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, living as though your desires are already realized, and maintaining unwavering faith in your inner reality, you align yourself with the natural laws of creation. As you embody the state of already having, you begin to draw to you the conditions that reflect that assumption. The world must respond to the consciousness you carry within. You are not a passive observer of life. You are the creator, the artist shaping your reality. The seed you plant in your consciousness must, in due time, bear fruit in the physical world. But this process requires patience, faith, and persistence. The journey is one of trusting the unseen, of knowing that what is planted in the fertile soil of your mind will eventually manifest when the time is right. Understand that faith is not a fleeting wish or a temporary hope. It is a deep and constant knowing that your desires are already fulfilled. You must live from the end, seeing the result as already complete, for the power of assumption becomes magnified when you fully inhabit the state of the wish fulfilled. The universe responds to the thoughts, feelings, and assumptions you choose to live by. It cannot help but reflect your inner beliefs in your outer world. So, make your assumptions consciously and with conviction. Assume wealth, assume health, assume success, and live as if it is already yours. The world will follow your lead, for it is always reflecting what you believe about yourself. The key to unlocking the life you desire is to change your inner assumptions, to see yourself as already living your dream, and to persist in that assumption until the outer world must reflect it back to you. In this way, you will discover that you are the creator of your own reality, and all that you desire is already within your reach, waiting to be brought into form.